part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome to the Artist Pivot Podcast. My name is Ayana Major-Bay, and I am an actress, voiceover artist, mentor, and your host. This show is a bi-weekly conversation highlighting pivots and life lessons from the perspective of artists, those who work in and around the arts, and arts educators. For those listening who don't consider themselves artists, you can pivot too. Everyone possesses the ability to do so. You just have to be reminded sometimes. All of our life lessons have taught us to be better pivoters, and it is my goal to share these life lessons to guide and inspire others. Here is this week's episode. All right, y'all. So on this episode, I am so excited to say that joining me is Hamadi Price, and he is an artist and has always been drawn to self-expression and expressionism in general through art, whether movement and performance or visual mediums like photography and film. With a natural love for storytelling, art, culture, and entertainment have always been at the heart of what excites and energizes him. He currently exercises many muscles as photographer, director of photography, and editor within his work. He has been published in various publications on media outlets such as The Cut, Billboard, Okayplayer, Brick Magazine, Women's Running Magazine, and others. Y'all, welcome. Hamadi Price is here. Hello.
Hey. Hi, Ayana. What's going on?
Oh, just record a little episode with you. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been like a long minute, so I'm so excited to actually talk to you, have a conversation about art and what we enjoy doing, and just connecting as people and giving and kikiing a little bit, like you said, and giving the people some fun stuff to listen to. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited, y'all. I'm so excited to speak to Hamadi. We go back a couple years. We're not gonna age ourselves, but we go back.
We are not gonna do that, but but we do go back a couple of years. We were very young then. We were very young then.
We were babies then.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Oh, so thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
And my first question to you would be, if I asked you, how you're doing right now in a text message, like I sent you a text saying, hey, Hamadi, how are you doing? But you could only reply to me in emojis only, what would you send me?
I would probably send either the swirly eye emojis or the orange emoji with the question mark, the exclamation point, it looked like it's saying a really bad curse word or something. Because with what is going on in the world right now and what we woke up to today and yesterday, that's how I feel. Swirly and just what is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I would send you.
Okay, great. And I'd be like, Fred, you okay? You need me to come and give you a hug? You good?
Yeah. And I would welcome it with open arms.
Great. Yes. Thank you for that imaginary text.
Yes.
Yes. So I wanted to bring you on to talk about, your many pivots as an artist and all of the things that you have, taken on and learned, really about understanding the importance of adapting and using the skills that you have and going, okay, well, I got to pivot, so let's make it worth my while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's make it worth my while.
Exactly. So start me off with, I guess most people I start off with when you left college, we all kind of had a dream and then life was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
You're sure about that?
Are you sure? I know we've never met before, really. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm going to be the one that challenges you here. Oh yeah, for sure. That's the way that I felt when I left college as well. I mean, the end of college was a whole pivot for me um, in general, because it was honestly a life pivot, like a huge life shift happened for me, like at the end of college.
Yeah.
So it was freeing in a way, because it was like, that allowed me to learn like so much about myself,
Mhm.
that situation.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it really did like hit hard, where I was like, oh wow, there's no safety net now anymore. Really,
Mm.
there's no buffer, there's no anything. I can't say like, oh, I'm this age anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a teenager, so that I can't really pay attention to that, or I'm not really putting a lot of energy towards that. It was really like a kick in the gut, a punch in the gut. And I realized that when I left college, that my love of art and wanting to be a visual artist, just like hopping out and stepping out in that way, just
Mhm.
was not. It wasn't feasible for me. So kind of like what I had mentioned in a write up, was like me leaving college, I had to
Mhm.
just like survive. I was like, I had to get regular day jobs, I guess I would say, 9 to 5 jobs.
Mhm.
I had to get to be able to just like survive, and to like allow me to do the art that I did want to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you gotta pay bills.
you got to pay bills, and I think it just got to like, what made me pivot out of that was me realizing like, wow, I might have a little money in the bank, I might have this, I might have that, or whatever, but I don't have like joy, which like is what art,
Mm.
which is what art brought me. It's like I realized I was waking up every day and I was like dreading where I was going to work. I was like not happy with what I was doing, and that's a large part of your life. I mean, you give like 40 hours a week to a 9 to 5 job, 40 plus hours a week. That's a large part of your life.
Yes.
So yeah, just making the decision then at that point to leave, which actually I stayed there for like a couple of years, because I was kind of just like trying to figure everything out. But
Mm.
yeah, but making a decision to leave was still like really scary, even after all that time and all of that quote unquote planning, and
Yeah.
um thinking I had everything, like all my ducks in a row, like, okay, I'm fully prepared now. Even when you do it, it's still like such an adjustment period
Yeah.
that that happens. But yeah, straight out of college, I was not doing my art for probably about 3 years, and that was painful.
Oh,
it
wow. Oh,
was pain.
wow. So you
It was
went
painful.
right directly and I felt that as you said that, like, yeah, like, I could only imagine like
Yeah,
you said, you didn't have any joy waking up going to the 9 to 5 that you were going to.
yeah, and not having any time really,
Mhm.
like actual quality time
Mhm.
outside of that to dedicate to my art. Yeah, it was just making the matter worse. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It was just. And then geographically, I was just like not in a place that was conducive to me really elevating and doing what I had to do in art. So it was a lot of decisions that like needed to be made for me to be like, I'm gonna put myself first, and not just like what everybody says that I should do. Like, because you
Mhm.
should leave college and you should look for a job to be able to support yourself, and you should this and you should that and you should and you
Mhm.
should and you should. But it's like a lot of times people can give you their advice, but none of us are really actually walking in each other's like shoes. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, once you did decide to go, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna leave this 9 to 5. I gotta pursue my artistic endeavors."
hmm
What was the path that you started down?
The path I started down was actually acting in theater arts, because
Okay.
um, because that was, I mean, I think obsessed would probably be an understatement, but
Okay.
like I
Okay.
I love theater, I love film, I love acting, I love
Mhm.
character development, I love
Mhm.
just being able to be a whole different person than I am in my everyday life and my
Yeah.
everyday life movings. So acting was my first endeavor into that, and I started like just auditioning for like a lot of short films, a lot of like theater productions. I hadn't pushed myself to do like musicals or anything like that yet, because it wasn't something that I was comfortable with just yet.
Yeah.
um, but like funny enough, outside of like the film projects that I did, the first like theater show that I did was a musical. How funny
Mhm.
is that? And
Uh-huh.
ironic, where you and I met.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was on theater project, musical Dreamgirls, which we had a great time doing, and I absolutely loved it. And like from then, I knew like, okay, I was like, I want to keep doing this.
Mhm.
Like I'm gonna keep auditioning. I'm gonna continue to audition for musicals now because once I got that little taste, it was like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, this is what you want to do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get to sing, dance, you get to act, you get to do everything,
All of it.
all of it in one. So I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And kept doing it. Like I did another show, Aida, where
Mhm.
I had a great time doing that show as well. But what kind of drew it to a halt for me and really made me like reconsider was I had auditioned to get in an MFA program,
Okay.
and it was like, I mean, it was probably the most nerve wracking thing I probably have ever done.
Mhm.
But I was like, I have to go for this. I was like, because I left my job to come back up here and do this.
Right.
So, nah, I'm going for this. Um, and I got to for one of the schools that I was auditioning for, I got to like the final callback,
Yeah.
and it was probably 30 of us in that final callback, and they took 15 people into the program, and
Ooh,
I was part
okay.
of and I was part of the 15 that did not make it into the program. So it like crushed me, like to be honest, like
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Especially when it's like, I don't know, I guess I felt like for a while I was like on such a high, and even through the whole audition process and everything, you feel that way, like, oh my God, I made it to the next round. And you just start getting like deeper and deeper. And then especially when you go visit the school and you start seeing yourself living in the area and all of
Mhm.
that, it just felt like, okay, this is right. Okay, this is happening. Like, don't,
Yeah.
this is right. And then, like you said, it's like life tells you, like, okay, so if I don't give you this, then what are you going to do?
Ooh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? Like, if you don't get this thing that you really want, like, so bad, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep going? Are you going to give up? And like, I would say that's probably like the main thing right now up until this point that I look at and I'm like, maybe I could have kept going. Because after that, I was just so discouraged, and I was like,
Oh.
okay, maybe I should move on. I was like, because if this isn't really like 90+% of the world of acting,
Mhm.
I don't, at the time it was just like, I don't know for me. I was so
Mhm.
like unsure. So I had to, I moved on, but I'll probably go back. At some point, I will go back.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Understood, understood. But that was your time to move on, like, to then, pivot, if you will, down the path that you're on right now, like,
yeah.
as a photographer, as a visual artist, as a
Mhm.
director of photography, and so once that, devastating blow came and you were like, "Okay, well, alright, I think I'm gonna go in a different direction," so
Yeah,
you like, "Okay, well, there's this other path. Let me go
yeah.
down that." So how was that for you?
It was actually very natural,
Okay.
which made me think about it on a deep level of like, maybe like this seems like I didn't really. How do I say this? It was a very natural transition for me, I would
Mhm.
say, because I had always been taking pictures, like my literally taking photos like my whole life. Like I don't think I never not had a camera. I think
Oh, okay.
my mom always bought me a camera. It was like we would go on vacation and I would accidentally go in the pool with my camera in my pocket and cry, and my mom would be like, "Ah, I'll just buy you a new one," kind of
Uh-huh,
thing. Like,
uh-huh. Yes.
because she knows, like, oh my God, like, I wouldn't cry over something I didn't really care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a camera. It was always a thing for me. And funny enough, it's like what I studied in college and everything. It was my major was film production and my minor was photography. So
Mhm,
um, it was very natural. After that, like, I mean, even while I was auditioning for schools, I was still photographing. So
mhm.
afterwards, it was just so natural, and I was meeting people in a way that it was like I'm meeting this person who I know from college who brought me to a party in New York and introduced me to a photographer that I started working with. It's like it was just too easy.
Uh-huh,
It
uh-huh.
was like, oh, everything is like, oh, oh,
Harmony.
like it's
It's all syncing
yeah.
together. Uh-huh.
it was like harmony, like together. So I just really started to hone in on it more. I mean, I realized how much I was like just moved by photography, by visual imagery, whether it be like music videos or photographs that I've seen like in publications like over the years, or films, TV, like anything. I will always just be paying attention to like how it's shot, or wanting to know like the behind the scenes, what was their lighting like, what was their this like, So I realized oh, this is like the arena where I can practice all of those interests of mine,
Yeah.
And you can, and even as like a director, you can practice like things that you've learned over time with your acting. Like you can, like, you're making something, you're making your vision. So you can practice all of that, like in that arena. And that's what really made me say like, oh, this is exactly like the road that I want to go down. And being a visual artist, like there's so much I can do here. There's so many stories that I can tell. And like I can do them. I don't have to ask, like I don't have to try to audition for like a part to be able to do it. It's like, no, I read this book and I want to tell this like little story. I want to take a little excerpt from it and like tell a story about it, or I want to whatever.
Yeah.
It's so open, and that's what I kind of enjoy about. I really enjoy about visual arts. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's open and it's in your hands.
Yeah, it's in your hands. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to not say like, oh yeah, I like control,
Right. Well,
but
I mean, control to a certain point. Like, yes, there are things in life that are literally out of your control. Yes.
right,
But in
right.
terms of it's in your control, like you said, you don't have to audition to make this piece of art. You don't have to submit your final draft to get published. You know what I'm saying? Like you can grab your camera and go, okay, I'm going to take a picture of these things that inspire me, or I'm going to make this together. And like, or like, you have editing skills. You're like, I'm going to put this together myself. So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't want to necessarily say control, but it's the freedom to create.
Freedom to create. I think that's the perfect way to frame it, is the freedom to create. And I think like just as like creators in general, as Black creators for sure, like in this climate that we're living in, I'm like, that's what we all want, and that's what we're all really demanding at this point, is like the freedom to create. Like give us the freedom and the room to write, to photograph, to tell our stories, and know that like those stories are going to translate to the audience that it reaches. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I would say to you, or ask you rather, you wrote down something for me that I thought was very interesting. And you were watching a documentary titled Black Art in the Absence of Light.
Yes.
And there is a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it, y'all, but there is a quote basically like this artist, asking other artists, are you willing to make art in the absence of light? Like if nobody sees the work, are you still willing to do it?
Yeah.
Like, and if the answer is yes, then you should be doing it. But if the answer is no,
if the answer is no, let's
right.
reevaluate. Let's reevaluate a little bit.
Exactly. So explain
Yeah.
to me, like, how that affected you and like your processes and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, that quote affected me in like a really profound way, for me to like really pull it out of this whole like 1 hour and 30 something minute, 40-minute documentary, and really like hold on to it. It was like very loud to me when he said it, because like as like artists in general, it's like I feel like we open ourselves up to so much, like so many different opinions, like because different people are going to intake and digest and get and take things from like your art, then like everybody's going to take something different. So what stood out in that to me was just like, it made me question myself, to be honest, which is what I enjoyed. Like, are you willing, Hamadi? Like, are you willing to keep making your art and to keep telling the stories that inspire you and that energize you, even if nobody sees it? And for me, like the answer is yes, because I've realized that this is something, visual arts, creating small short films, pieces, videos, photos, like that is something that I will do for free. I will do for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I would do for free. I will do for the rest of my life.
Right.
And for me, it's like breathing for me. I don't know. It's like
Mhm.
I need it almost. I need to be able to like capture these moments that really captivate me. So
Mhm.
uh I will continue to create in the absence of light, but it's just like if nobody if nobody gives you like the recognition that you may
Mhm.
very well feel that you deserve, or that or whatever, if nobody gives it to you, will you continue to value like your voice enough? Will you
Mm.
value your perspective enough, your experiences, like your life enough to be able to document it and keep it for like time? I mean, photos, videos, and things, they are pieces of history. Like people can go back and reference, see, it gives you a overview or at least a little peek into like where said person was during their life when they made that piece of art or whatever. So it's very
Mhm.
important to keep making the art, because like even if nobody realizes it now, it may be somebody 15 years down the line that might look back
Mhm.
at your art and be like, oh my God. Like, and it could be just for the simple fact that you continue to make it.
Yeah.
That is the inspiring part. Like this person continued to make their art no matter what.
Mhm.
That's all the drive I need, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you hit on something that I wanted to talk about was, are you valuing,
Mhm.
your own art? Are you valuing your own voice? Because
Mhm.
that's what it is, like, making something and nobody will see it, or or they may see it, but either way, I'm making it because I value my opinion, or I value my life experience, or I value
Yeah.
my voice.
Yeah, I value like my perspective on this topic, or like,
Mhm.
I value the way that I feel about, you know, women's rights, about, you know what I mean, to be able to highlight like women in a beautiful way. Like
Mhm.
it's, you know what I mean? Or I care about LGBTQ rights and be able to highlight people in the LGBT community that like shows like their beauty, that shows their humanity, that shows like their love. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
do you value that? Do you value like lessons of humanity enough to be able to share them with other people? Like, you know what I mean? Because
Mm.
so many things that we're doing are literally come from, if they come from your experience, that means that other people are experiencing it. That means it's
Yeah.
an element of like humanity. That means it's a universal story. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So
Yes.
it's definitely when like, are you willing to create an absence of light? To me, it's like, are you willing to really not be selfish, even though like you may not,
Mm.
it may not look the way you want it to look or show up the way you want it to show up. Like,
Mhm.
are you still willing to not be selfish and to still share and to still give and give and give and give? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Understood, understood.
Yeah.
So, my next question to you would be, is there a life lesson, that you're still learning, or that took you a little while to learn and you were like, "Ah, I got it. I finally got it. Thank you. I understand now."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That has kind of brought you through these, if you will, iterations of Hamadi from,
Hmm.
college to then theater to then now, visual artists and photographer, like, yes.
Hmm. To be honest, the biggest it sounds so cliche, but I will say
Mhm,
it. The biggest lesson that I really have learned is really to be myself, like to be
mhm,
like, however weird or like uncomfortable you might think that it may make other people feel, or it may
mhm,
show up or whatever, is like, if you're being 100% yourself, like you'll always like hear a voice, like whether it's like your mom, it might be your dad, it might be your aunt or your ancestor, somewhere, somebody
yeah,
is,
mhm,
you're gonna hear like a voice that like helps continue to like guide you through like your pivots. Like, I mean, my mom just telling me that like me being me is like my superpower is like, and I am not understanding that before of like, what is she talking about? Like nobody, how does me being me affect anybody else? That was the thing for me. Like, how does me being me, little old me, affect anybody else? But I mean, when you think about it, the people that you come into contact with on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or whatever, like you being your full self is literally like giving them all agency to be their full selves. I mean, like this quote from the poem A Return to Love, which is our greatest fear. I think everybody knows, or a lot of people know that poem, but like at the end it literally says, and as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Like that's the answer. That's the answer. It's like if you are true to you, then anything that you do will be blessed because you're attuned with like with yourself and how you relate to the world and how you know what I mean, and your representation in the world. Like you start seeing it from a bird's eye view, I guess, and like as a bigger picture, more than just like yourself. Yeah. So I think it's like a mix of things. Like I said, like my mom just constantly reminding me to be myself and to know that is powerful. And also that quote that I just read, which I think just supports what my mom says. It's just like continue being yourself and know that is enough. Like I wish I could scream that from the mountaintops, like at others and at myself.
Ditto. I feel the same way. Ditto. Like you are enough. I am enough. Like there is actually an affirmation that I listen to in the morning that is like, I am enough. Like I have to share it with you. I'll email it to you. But it's that like, I am enough. And knowing that, you are the only Hamadi Price in the world. Like,
right.
That's it. Like, that's it. There was not a Hamadi Price before you. There will not be one after you. Like you are the only Hamadi Price in the world at this time.
Yep.
That's it.
Right. Like, so therefore that automatically gives you a point of view.
Yes.
You know, that in itself, nobody is like you. Nobody is like you. So you can give two people a camera, and both of those people are not going to capture the same thing.
Yes.
You could even give them literally the same object as a subject, and those two people are not going to capture it the same way. So, like, yeah, you definitely having and building, I will say, building more confidence in knowing that, like, my perspective, my voice, what I have to say, the way that I say it, the way that I capture it is very unique and it's only to me. Yeah, that's that's empowering when you sit and you think about it. So
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. And
yeah.
You have it. I have it. Everybody listening has it. Like that is you. That is your perspective. That is your voice, and that is yours. That again, you should share with the world. Like your mom saying that. No, being you is your superpower. Like, of course, like when we're younger, we're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But then that's also because, school as a whole, middle school, high school, it's rough for 99% of us.
Yes.
You're like, because you're trying to fit in. Like you're just trying to fit in and like, so like being you don't want to be you.
Right. I was gonna say, especially in like middle school or high school, like all of that it was so difficult, especially if you're an artist and you knew back then that you were an artist too, and you're like, oh, I feel a little different than other people, but I'm gonna try to be the same, I guess. You know what I mean? It's like I almost wish sometimes I almost wish, and that's why it's also like just important to tell people that are younger than us and that are our cousins, our nieces, our nephews, whatever, to let them know, like, when you go, like, you being different and you being unique, that, trust me, that's going to be praised when you're older. Trust me,
It's a good thing.
it's a good thing. It's a good thing instead of like, yeah, instead of looking at it as a bad thing or like an outcast or a black sheep or whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
you're unique, and in your uniqueness is like unimaginable power.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. In your uniqueness is unimaginable power.
Yes,
Ooh, that might be
yes.
the quote from the episode I put on the social medias. That's
That-
a good one, Hamadi.
yeah.
That's
It
it,
just came
y'all.
out. It
It
just
just
came
came
out.
out. That's the quote, child. That's the quote.
I love it.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
But,
it's
we had
yeah.
to get to that. Like, I'll even speak for myself. I don't think I got to that till my 30s, which I think is too long.
Mm,
Like, I
mm,
think is way too long, but I'm glad I'm here.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
trying to it's weird, like, you're I don't even wanna use the word different, it's not different. I just knew that I liked the arts and that was my path, and, like, as artists, we wear our emotions on our sleeve, and, like, we're very empathetic and empathic, and
yeah. Hmm.
I have those words for it now, but younger I guess, the kids act a little differently than me, but I like to sing and, like, dance and do it, like so it's
Right.
used to be classified I hate that they classify it as different. Why is that different that the
I
person is
don't
in the
know.
arts?
Right. I don't know why I don't know why it's different either. To be honest, I don't know why that's classified as. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Anybody listening? Do y'all know the answer? You know what I
Right,
mean?
y'all know the
Why
answer?
is that considered? Yeah, why is that considered different and different with like a negative connotation to it? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
Yes.
things could be different. People can say things are different, but think like, oh, that's different. That's great.
Mhm.
But I think when it comes to like performers and characters and like people that create like, I mean, to me, it's genius. It's not different.
Yeah.
It should be like, oh, that person is is a genius
Yes.
because, sometimes like when I think about it, I'm like, wow, like sometimes artists like really create. A lot of times artists like create this alter to be able to step outside of like their comfort zone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's
Mhm.
almost like a survival tool, and I wish like art is a survival tool for us.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's how we like relate to the world, how we find our friends. It's how we find like our
Yes.
chosen family and things like that. It's like it's a survival tool. It's not trendy. It's not like us wanting or trying to be quote unquote different, weird, awkward, or whatever people try to label it as. It's really like our heart and soul, how we speak and communicate.
Mhm. That that's it. Yeah, you hit that right on the head. Like, our heart, our soul, how we communicate, and how we find our tribe of people. How
Yeah.
we find those people. Like, "Oh, you got the same I like that too! Then come on, be my friend." Like, like, your energies match, and you're like, "Oh, you like that too?" Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we find our people.
Yeah, it's so much like so many times it's like it's a launching pad to just like blossoming a really beautiful relationship. I mean, like even like the friendship and relationship that you and I have, it's like we haven't talked in a minute, but it's like
Mhm.
we for us connecting on art first by being in a production together, but then to connect personally through being Caribbean, through just multiple things, through growing up in New Jersey, like
Yep.
everything. It
Yes.
like art was like the door for you and I to just like create a relationship that like went beyond that. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's beautiful. It's a survival tool, people.
Yes, it's a survival tool and our way of expressing.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Oh yes. Definitely our
Yeah.
way of expressing. It's the place that you can be like, the most vulnerable, and that is why too. Like out of 100%, the work that you may see from an artist is going to be 20. Like
Mm.
the other 80% sometimes I feel like you don't see the other 80% because it's like so many of our vulnerabilities are like wrapped up in that, and you're kind of like, oh, if somebody has the nerve to judge this, it's gonna be a problem. So maybe I shouldn't share that.
You're like,
You know,
I'm not gonna put that out.
like, cause I love it, and
Right.
sometimes
Right.
you know what I mean. Like Erica Badu was serious. I'm an artist. I'm sensitive about my shit. It's like sometimes I love it so much that like I'd rather keep it for myself because it's that pure. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather keep it
Yes.
for myself rather than share it and then have it taint my own view about it or whatever. Like
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, the saying of like, people gonna talk about you either way. People gonna talk about your art either way. So it's like, right, do I want to put this out? Because there'll be people who praise it and there'll be people who put it down. But it's
Yeah,
that special to me that it's like, ooh, is this for the world to see? And that's
right,
okay. It's not always for the world to see.
right. Do you? Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that because I was going to ask, like, do you feel like that is like selfish in a way to sometimes keep some of your like expression through art to yourself?
No, I don't. I don't. Because I think that actually is a form of self-care.
Mm-hmm,
If you've written this thing, you've taken a photo, you've, I don't know, written a song or, whatever it is you've done that you're like,
yeah.
oh no, I really like that brings me joy when I look at it or I listen to it or I view it. And you're like,
Mm-hmm,
I don't actually really want to share that. That's just for me. I don't think that's
yeah.
selfish. I think that is self-care because, like, let's be honest, we're human beings and human beings
Mm-hmm.
judge things, whether they judge it
Yes.
good or bad. And yes, there's this whole movement now of like, let's just like let things be and not judge them. And well, child,
Yeah.
you can't get the 7 billion people in the world to agree on that. So,
Exactly.
so you always gonna have opinions.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. A- and I'm glad that that I have your support and not feeling like it's selfish because like yeah, I I, to- I
Mhm.
I totally agree that it is self care. Yeah.
Yeah. Because not everything's for everybody. Like,
Mm,
not everything and not even, speaking just about art, but about life. Like,
yeah.
my
In
best
general.
friend knows a lot of stuff about me,
Hmm.
but a new friend doesn't. Like, not
Right.
everything is for everybody.
Wow. That's a good way to look at it too. In like relationship wise, like
Mhm.
I can have two friends that yeah, one knows everything about me, one knows 40%, but that's just where we are in that's where we are in our journey together.
Bingo. That's it. That's where we are in our journey. Because it's not denying that the newer friend, I'll put in quotation marks, the newer friend, the information. It's
Hmm.
just the best friend has been here a lot longer and has been all through a lot more ups and downs.
Right.
So they
Hmm.
just know more. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I'm not necessarily being selfish to the newer friend. We're just
Hmm.
not at that point in our journey yet. So I think that's kind of the same thing for your art. Like, I think if you're like, I don't really want to share that,
Hmm.
I think that's okay. Like, you're the one who made it. Again, will you make things and there's an absence of light? Yes, nobody's going to see this. But I'm choosing that no one sees it, but that doesn't mean I don't value it. Doesn't mean I don't cherish it. It just means it was for me.
Right. Right. Yes, and it doesn't mean that I'm not working.
Yes. Ooh, yes.
Because that's
Yes.
that's like really another thing that I feel artists deal with, and that you feel like you have to make a pivot to something else to feel like, oh, I'm doing something, I'm working, I'm like,
To
okay,
prove.
to prove, yeah, exactly. And I will sit here and tell you that I am the first person that's very much so guilty of that
Yeah.
in the way that I have been, of thinking like, oh, I have to do like some kind of project, or I have to post like something for me to be able to have this illusion that like, oh yeah, he's always like that. But really, you just seeing like the result, which is sometimes 1/1000th of a second when it comes to
Uh,
photography, or 1/500th of a second, like
uh-huh.
that is not speaking of like the 1,500 seconds that I am like on the computer doing research for that one photo. So you know what I mean? So
Mm. Yeah.
it's like so much of what we do like as artists is like digesting and intaking it, and like that's why that's 80% of the 100, and the 20% is the work that you see that we put out. Or at least I
Yes.
feel that way.
Yes. I mean, I think the way you feel is valid. Like, there's a lot of that with photography, with dance, with theater, with to me, quite frankly, any art form. The world sees 20%. The other 80%, like you said, is the research, is the, I don't know, the rehearsal, is the cleaning, is the producing, is the all of this, but the world just
Yeah.
sees this little bloop, there you go. But they don't
Yeah.
understand the hours, months, sometimes years on projects.
Years.
Years before you even see that 4 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Right? Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
That's crazy. 3 years. You'll see 3. It'll be 3 years of development on a film before you see the 2-minute and 20-second trailer.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. 80% is the work, 20% is the presentation.
Yes. And then they're like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm working. You just give me another year, you'll see the 2-minute trailer. Just we're working here. We're creating
Right.
here."
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So, my last question to you would be, what would be your, nugget of wisdom to anyone, whether they're an artist, not an artist, but
Mhm.
especially to those young artists, as we had mentioned before, to be like, just be yourself. Like, that's your superpower. But, like, what
Mhm.
would be your nugget of wisdom to be like, y'all, this is my little nugget of wisdom? It could be something you've learned, something you're still learning, or something, trying to empower yourself with. But what would be your little nugget of wisdom?
Uh, I mean, Jay-Z says this all the time, and I really love Jay-Z just as an artist.
Uh-huh.
I love him as a person. I love him as a businessman. Um, but really to believe that you are the greatest before
Mhm.
anybody else
Mhm.
does, before anybody else does. And like,
Mm.
and really believing that, um, that, mm, believing that having that mindset will like service itself in whatever you are doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's honestly like the faith walk and everything is like something that I have been really like continuing to learn, continuing to practice, continuing to like just study, I guess, like
Mhm.
because it's so much, it's so like intricate in artists succeeding, like
Yeah.
just you know what I mean, like having the faith that the work that you are putting behind the passion and the drive and just the natural God-given talents that you have, like you putting
Mhm.
the work behind that is going to pay off. Um, but it really does start with the belief. Like,
Yes.
I think that that is something that has like served me well throughout my whole life, like throughout whether I was running track or I was doing some kind of sport or I was or acting or photography, whatever. It's like just believing that I can do it. Like even though it may seem insurmountable, looking at it on paper,
Mhm.
it's like this would not be in front of me if I could not handle it. And that's another thing that I heard. Like this she's a costume designer, Zarina
Yeah.
Akers, and she said like if it's in front of me, that means I can handle it. So
Ooh.
in every situation
Mhm.
when I feel like when I feel insecure or like ooh questioning
Mhm.
myself, questioning my ability or anything, it's like first of all, I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for me,
Come
and I
on.
wouldn't, and I wouldn't be here
Mhm.
if I couldn't do it. So
Mhm.
so do it.
They're right. So I'm gonna do it.
Right. So maybe that's
Mhm.
maybe that's my nugget. So do it.
Mhm.
Maybe that
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that's the nugget. Like that thing that you've been wanting to do that you feel I don't know if I could pull it off. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it. I love that,
Yeah.
Hamadi. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I of course, that makes me think about, the Nike slogan, "Just do it." Like,
I mean,
just do it. I
right?
I get the slogan now. Like, when I was younger, I was like, "I don't understand." Now I'm like, "Oh. Oh, Nike, you were onto something."
Actually, yeah, you're right. Like, when you look at how simplistic that tagline is for a brand that is worldwide and international, I mean, like, it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
If you see that Nike check and three words underneath, you know what it says.
Yes.
And you know what it means. And it's like, I don't know, it's a constant reminder.
Right.
It's like a constant reminder, you know, when you, I mean, like, the world will tell you, give you messages everywhere. You know, and it's so crazy that you said that, because you just, like, you saying that just now just made me think about it and say, they're right. Like,
they've been saying it to us our whole lives. We weren't listening. They were like, just do it.
we wear Nike shoes and pants and shirts, and we wear the brand with their messaging on our body, but is it is it in the mind?
No, it's not in the mind. I should look at my sneaker. My little, do I have them in there? Are these Nikes? These Nikes, look. Y'all, you can't see, I'm holding up my shoe. It's right here. Nike, they little side. Just do it.
Just do it.
Every time I look at these sneakers.
I have on pants.
You got on Nike pants?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Crazy. They've been telling us our whole lives, just do it.
It's literally been in your face, like our whole lives. And, like, I mean, that message alone will, it's a lifetime message. It's a lifetime message, and it's just like, it's lifetime work, like, and no matter the arena.
Exactly. No matter the arena. Because, you know, we're always going to be, again, going back to, like, we're human beings. Before we're any of these other titles, we're human beings. And, like, there's going to be a fear factor there, but also acknowledging, is this fear really real? That's number one. But also, like, I heard someone go, I'm going to butcher this quote, shoot. But it's basically like, if you're more excited than you are fearful, you should do it immediately.
Ooh.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Like, the fear, there's a little lingering of, we all have the what ifs. Everybody has what ifs in varying degrees. Yeah. But if your excitement outweighs those what ifs, just do it.
Yeah. And also, I'm like, even if it doesn't, like, challenge yourself to just do it anyway. Just put the anyway at the end of the Nike slogan. Just do it anyway.
Just do it anyway.
Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, because really, like, in that, you know, in that moment of uncomfortability, you might find the gold.
That's it. That's it right there. In that moment of uncomfortability, like, I've heard this in so many arenas, like, professionally, personally, during exercise. I think this was the first time I heard it. I think I heard Jillian Michaels say it first when I was doing some yoga program, some exercise program she was doing a couple years ago. And I was like, this is hard. And literally during the program, she goes, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Oh, yeah.
Period. In every aspect of your life, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Wow. That's a nugget. That's a nugget for sure. Because, like, I mean, I don't, especially to be very specific, especially as Black creatives, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're gonna have to have uncomfortable conversations to demand what you are worth.
Yes.
You're gonna have to have uncomfortable conversations for people to demand that people respect you.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It doesn't, and it almost like, I was listening to this Hollywood Reporter roundtable, like, that talked about, like, Black famous, like,
okay,
and it was just speaking about, like, how sometimes it's like, no matter how much work you do, how much you put out, like, and, like, how much it may be celebrated or praised in, like, silos, it's like, you still are going to have to go into spaces where, like, there are people that know absolutely nothing about you and, like, what you've done for all these years. And that's an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
to be in and to be like, okay, but we're supposed to work together now.
Right.
We're supposed to create something together. And
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea
Mm-hmm.
what like my perspective is, like what projects I've done. You don't know what projects I've done, therefore you don't know my perspective. You don't know, and you don't like how is that supposed to happen?
Yeah.
But those are the times that you step in and you're like, okay, let's have this uncomfortable conversation. Let me let you know
Yes.
that maybe you should go do your research, or maybe you should this, or you should do that, or whatever. It's just, yeah, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think I love that statement.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
something I'm literally currently working on within myself, like especially when it comes to like public spaces and things like that. It's just, I'm a very like, even though I like performance and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
still like, as a person, me, Hamadi, like I'm a very shy person. So
Mm-hmm.
um but closed mouths don't get fed. So sometimes
Come on, that's that quote is so relevant. Listen, I've been hearing that since I was a child, and that's so relevant. I've been like, oh, it's just thing like Hamadi. Like when we get older, that's when things start to click. You're like, oh, that's why they said that.
right. And I'm like, I'm so happy that you asked it now that we're actually having this like open dialogue back and forth, because like sitting with like the question that you asked me beforehand, I'm like, I'm really like trying to think about it. But there are so many things that we just heard all of our lives that you get later on in life, because
Mm-hmm.
that is one that I'm like, oh yeah. You know what I mean? It's
Yes,
like,
yes.
how was I not realizing that that's what I meant at 18
Right,
or
right.
19? Like how? Yeah.
But I gotta put an asterisk in that. I think we
Okay.
learn things the way we need to learn them. And I can tell you right now,
Mm.
18-year-old Ayana wasn't trying to decipher what the quote meant, a closed mouth don't get fed. 18-year-old Ayana was trying to get to musical theater in college. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like our
Right.
focus was
You're right.
different. And like you said, life didn't smack us yet. We were
It ain't
college,
smack.
it is a buffer. And you still have your
Oh
friends,
yeah.
you're going to class, like fortunately for me, I had loans, so I didn't have to really work during college. Like I did
Hmm.
work, but I didn't have to work to pay tuition. Like my loans did that. But there are people who
Right.
have to work to pay tuition in college. That's a whole different situation. But like for those of us who, tuition was covered some type of way,
Right.
that was, still like I'm in school, I'm in class, da, 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 like a closed mouth don't get fed. What you mean? I've been eating. I'm not starving. Like a closed mouth don't get fed. Ate. What?
You like,
I know what that means.
like, and not in like no disrespect to like anybody else, but it's like I'm in college like with no debt. What you mean? I'm eating. And like you said.
Right, right. But then your graduation
Oh.
date comes.
Ooh. Ooh. It's like the day afterwards. The very next day.
Sally Mae,
The
or
very
whatever her
next
name
day.
is now, because she got about 3 names now since we done left college.
Right.
She come knocking on your door like, hello, it's time to pay back. Sis, I graduated yesterday. What?
Right. And she'd be like, well,
Well, what does that mean to
well,
me?
right. Well, my coins are needed. Still, my coins are needed.
I need you to pay me back, friend. You enjoyed your 4 years. That's cute. So like I
Exactly.
wasn't thinking about what a closed mouth don't get fed. I wasn't thinking about what that means back then. But now,
Yeah.
oh, I get it.
It makes a lot of sense now. It makes a lot of sense now. I'm hoping that if there are younger artists that are listening to this
Mm-hmm.
episode, to like just, I mean, I know like when you're younger, it just seems like stuff that your parents are telling you and things that your elders are telling you, it just
Mm-hmm.
seems like you seem so far removed from it.
Yes.
But I mean, I just like, if that's one thing I wish I could go back and like really think about how it was going to like manifest itself later on, it would definitely be things that I would pay attention to more,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And just like have a self like reflective moment of like, what is okay, that's what that means. Okay, how can I like incorporate that into like my everyday like thinking and the way that I move, the decisions that I make, like going from here to there, you know what I mean? Because like I definitely feel like right after college, like that 20 something, that beginning of your 20s to like your 30s, like the moves and stuff that you make like during that time are extremely important.
Yes.
They
Yes.
are extremely important. So yeah, take the nuggets from people that are giving them to you.
Take them. Take the
Take them.
nuggets.
Take the
Take the nuggets in your 20s, y'all. Take them.
yes,
Take them.
yes.
So don't get in the 30s and be like, "Oh, that's what that meant.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Right.
well, well, at least I got to it."
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. Mhm.
I would love to do like later on in life or at some point in life do something with that, like with younger artists and
Mhm.
just talks, like whether it be at a high school or whatever, you know. I feel maybe high school is a good, like I would love to maybe talk to high schoolers that are aspiring artists or
Yeah.
that have art as a talent but don't really outwardly show it, express it like very loudly. Like, no, be very
Yeah.
loud about that.
Yeah.
Be very loud about that, because to be an artist is really a true like divine gift, you know?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ah, Hamadi, thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome. This is my
Yes,
first
thank
time, so
you.
yay.
Yay! I love it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, so 2 things. Number 1, where can people find you on these, social media channels we have now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whichever one you use?
Right, right. Well, I do use Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, my handle is Prince Hamadi, Prince, Prince, and then Hamadi, and my Twitter is the exact same with an underscore before it. So @_Prince Hamadi.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I will put that in the show notes, you guys, so don't worry. You could just click on it and connect with
Yeah,
Hamadi.
yeah.
Yes. And then before I let you go, I must say to you that I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that's beautiful.
You're
I'm gonna write that on.
welcome.
I'm gonna write that on my own, like a stick.
Yes.
I'm gonna write that. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Ayana.
You're so very
Thank
welcome. You're
you.
so very welcome.
And likewise, sweetheart, because this pivot podcast is very much so necessary. And like this conversation, like just being able to like reconnect about this, like
Mhm.
on this, that shows you like that it's needed. And like this, I mean, these kind of conversations just with like-minded people, with people that have experienced the emotions that you have as well, like other artists, is extremely important. So like,
Mhm.
thank you for making the space for us to speak about things that we more times than not deal with privately.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you, my friend. Thank you, thank
yeah,
you.
yes.
Please feel free to visit this episode's show notes for links to get in touch with my guest, as well as a link to rate and review my podcast on Podchaser. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, all you have to do is scroll down to the rate and review section. You can find and connect with me on Instagram @TheArtistPivot to see audiograms, fun facts, and posts featuring my guests. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already to get notified when a new episode is out. And please share this episode with at least one friend. Ever heard the phrase found time? Well, Audible helps you find the time to get more stories and information while commuting, cooking, gardening, exercising, etc. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests, as well as guided meditation programs. They have podcasts, theatrical performances, A-list comedy, and exclusive Audible originals you won't find anywhere else. Fun fact, if you listened to every title on Audible, you'd be listening for more than 3 centuries. So click the link in the show notes or visit audibletrial.com/theartistpivot to start your 30-day free trial of Audible and listen to that book you haven't read yet or laugh at a comedy special while doing the dishes. Again, that's audibletrial.com/theartistpivot. Using the link lets Audible know that we sent you and a great way to support the show. You can also support the show by buying me a coffee. Well, not literally, but figuratively. Click the Support the Show link in our show notes and it will take you to a site called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can support the show with your donations. If you do ever want to buy me a coffee in real life, my favorite coffee is the Italian brand Lavazza. No, they did not pay me to say that. This episode was edited by Kieran Niemand and produced by me, Ayana Major Bay. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you soon.